Good morning, Cougar Scholars. So here we have the plan for week 8 of at-home learning. This has not been my favorite way to teach, but most of you have done a really good job of keeping up with your assignments, and I'm proud of the work that you've done. When I was looking at week 6's answers, they were in general very good and very thoughtful responses, and you'll be able to use that information to help you craft of what we have going on in week 8. Okay, so let's go over the plan. Session 1 for week 8 will be a very brief video lesson. That's the lesson you're listening to right now. I'm going to try to keep it at 10 minutes or less. And there is a short completion assessment that you'll need to do to get your 100 for completing the video lesson. Then you will log on to No Red Ink and complete the embedding quotations lesson and activity. Everyone will get a 100 for doing this as long as they make above a 70. If you make below a 70, then you will need me to reset that score so that you can try it again. And you can do that by messaging me on Schoology. Session 2 will be the draft for your rhetorical analysis. Session 2 is going to be graded based on your quality, following instructions, and completion. Okay, so basically you do everything that we ask you to do, and it's really high quality work. Think of it like that's check plus, that's a 100. If you do a pretty good job, but I had to make many comments to get you back on track, that's going to be about a 90, like a check. And then if there are significant lapses, it will be somewhere in the 80 range or below if you don't get much done. So we'll talk about what that would look like to me as we move forward. There are optional participation opportunities for you. This Tuesday we're having our Zoom meeting, which you can ask me questions, but the theme for that, it's going to be at 1 p.m. is magical theater. I've kind of combined two ideas. So one person suggested we go formal, so you can dress up as if you're going to the theater. And you can also, some of you may choose to be showmen and do magic tricks for us. So it's a magical theater experience. So please join us. It'll be fun, and it'll be a little goofy, I'm sure, because, really, what are you going to do in a pandemic anyway? Then we have the book club. Enjoyed those of you who were able to come. It was so good to hear you talk about this really strange book, Lord of the Flies. And we'll talk about chapters 7 through 12, and that will be on May 20th. Be aware, if you're in book club, that there's no shame to listen to the audio while you're reading it. I do think that you should kind of keep the book in front of you so you can look at the text, but you can look on YouTube to find a good version of the audio text to help you concentrate. Okay, so going into week 8, we're going to get work started on our rhetorical analysis. So I'm going to show you a student example. This is the student example of a thesis, not an introduction paragraph. There would be a little bit more if it was an introduction paragraph, but this is for the rhetorical analysis of the dodgeball position statement. And this is a real student example from Mr. Brady's class last year, actually this year. So this is really good work, but it's good for you to see good examples because it will challenge you to do as well too. So let's look at the CAP statement, okay? Looking at context, audience, persona, and purpose. In 2006, after the release of the movie Dodgeball and a television show, the National Association for Sport and Physical Education released an article concerning their stance on the game dodgeball. In the article, NASPA urges schools and parents to ban and disapprove of dodgeball by claiming dodgeball does not meet the goals of physical education and that it may have adverse effects on children. You'll notice this is similar to the thesis structure that I asked you to follow for your statement on Malala Yousafzai's Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. So in this, you notice it's also 2 sentences. That's okay. Okay, so you could break it break it down into two, and then it tells us, here's our main part. What are they doing? What's her purpose? NASPA urges schools and parents to ban and disapprove of dodgeball. And then everything following this by is the rhetorical choices that this person is going to examine. So notice she didn't say by logos, pathos, ethos. She is describing those things that they're doing by claiming dodgeball does not meet the goals of physical education and that it may have adverse effects on children. Okay, so by describing those choices, that way she will not get stuck when she's trying to write her paragraphs. Okay, now this is not the complete paragraph. It takes 2 slides. So get ready. I'm going to read through it quickly. I want you to notice how fluently the quotations work. And I have a copy of this uploaded into Schoology for you to refer back to as a model when you are crafting your own. Okay, here we go. The National Association for Sport and Physical Education tries to convince schools and parents to oppose dodgeball through stating the game does not meet the physical and mental goals of PE. So notice that comes from the thesis. Towards the beginning of the article, NASPA describes the purpose of physical education is to, quote, involve all children and for kids to, quote, participate actively both physically and mentally. Notice how those just flowed right into her sentence. She just embedded them. By stating the goals of PE early on in their article, NASPA establishes a clear reference for the audience as they refer to this concept throughout their entire announcement. This also keeps the readers in line with NASPA's objective for PE so that there may be limited misunderstandings and confusion between the speaker and reader, explaining why that's important for them stating the goal. Nice commentary. Now we're going to move on to our next point. Later in the article, NASPA tells that the weaker players who have the, quote, least amount of confidence physically are often eliminated first in the game, which does not help them develop confidence. In this assertion, NASPA manipulates the emotions of parents. Notice they do not say NASPA uses pathos, although this is referencing pathos. Okay, so you don't want to state or name the term. NASPA manipulates the emotions of parents and the purpose of schools to their benefit. Most parents want their kids to have confidence and a relatively high self-esteem, and by saying dodgeball may lead to a decrease in confidence for a child who had relatively low confidence levels to begin with, parents will be more likely swayed in disapproving the game. This also ties into the purpose of PE classes in schools because the courses are designed to generate healthy growth for a child's mind. Therefore, should be a comma after therefore, but I mean, it's not perfect, but this is a really good example. If a game results in detrimental mental effects within a child, it should not be allowed in class. NASPA also says dodgeball provides, quote, limited opportunities for kids in class, specifically the slower, less agile students who should be lag behind others in regards to physical activity. Keeping the goals of PE in mind, NASPA directly tells the audience why dodgeball fails to reach those merits. If the kids who need physical activity the most in school are not receiving that benefit in dodgeball, the game then fails to achieve the purpose of PE. Parents are more likely to oppose the game if they can visualize the disparity between the more athletic kids versus the slower ones. Since the majority of parents want their kids to be equally involved as everyone else and not for their kid to be out for half of class, dodgeball would not appeal to them. NASPA seeks to prompt parents and schools to disapprove and ban dodgeball as they claim it does not meet the goals of physical education. So notice that nice summary sentence that references the topic again. Okay, so you'll be able to look at this a little more in more detail, but also I'll have that in the folder. But most of your work this week, or all of your work except for watching the video, is on No Red Ink. So if you have not joined No Red Ink, would you believe it? There are still like 2 or 3 people who have not. Oh, goodness. Well, you need to get there because you are probably not passing this 6 weeks if you don't, because we're doing some work there. So go to, if you're in period 3, here's your link, here's your code. Same thing if you're in period 4, here's your link, here's your code. Okay, get it. Then I'm going to show you that in just a moment. So here's what's happening. And so those of you who are go-getters and you are moving fast, you can finish pretty much a little, or finish earlier, because the earlier you finish your guided draft, then I can give you feedback on it. Looks good. We can say, okay, make these few little changes and submit it. So here's what we have this week. Week 8. View the lesson. That's a grade. You have to do this session assessment. Then go to No Red Ink. Do the review lesson on embedding quotations. It's really good. They even taught me something that I have been doing wrong. You'll see, those of you who paid attention before, you'll know what was it that Ms. Strawn was doing wrong. I'll go ahead and tell you, because maybe this will be the question. What I was doing wrong is that I was telling you also, is if it's a sentence, if the quote is a complete sentence on its own, you always capitalize the first word. Turns out you capitalize the first word of a sentence quotation unless it is what's called a flow quotation. Okay, so be looking for that in your No Red Ink. Flow quotations, that's the exception to the rule on capitalizing the first word of a complete sentence quote. In week 9, you're going to do your final draft in No Red Ink, and basically I'm going to reset the guided draft, and you're just going to make changes to it, okay? And then you're going to copy and paste that final draft into a submission to turnitin.com. All right, so let's go real quick to No Red Ink. And, oh wait, I think there was one other thing I was going to tell you. Yes, borrowed items and book return is today from 8 to 4. A few of you received a message from me about books. Don't despair if you know you turn that book back in, because Ms. Strawn may not have checked it in like she intended to do. So, but will you please look around, and if you don't remember what book it is that I think that you have of mine, then get with me and I'll let you know. Okay, I'm not too worried about it. I don't have that many out, but just in case, take care of that. Okay, so I'm in No Red Ink, and this is the practice for embedding quotations. All right, some of you may have already done the lesson. This is such a good lesson that will help you moving forward, especially those of you who've struggled with this all year. I really love the lessons, and I love how they teach you step by step. So please do this practice. You get a 100 if you make at least a 70. If you don't make at least a 70, contact me and I'll reset it for you. Okay, then you're going to go to guided drafts. Let's look at it. Almost done. Oh, I gotta move this little box. Please forgive me. Okay, here we go. So here's the prompt. Read Malala Yousafzai's Nobel Peace Prize lecture. You've already done that. Okay, but reference it. I would have it open on another window, or if you have a phone, maybe have it one. If you're looking at a computer, hopefully you can be able to look at both. Then write an essay in which you analyze one or more of the following rhetorical choices the author makes in order to advocate for every child's right to an education. I would suggest that you do at least 2 rhetorical choices. If you're going to do one rhetorical choice, let's say you're going to focus on how she uses persuasive appeals, then you're going to talk, that still can be 2 body paragraphs, okay? So think about that whenever you're drafting it, because I'm probably going to suggest that you have at least 2 body paragraphs when you're writing this essay. Okay, so you'll have a introduction, you will have 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. So what are you going to look at? Oh, I'm sorry, I got in the middle of the prompt. My apologies. So you're going to write an essay in which you analyze one or more of the following rhetorical choices the author makes in order to advocate for every child's right to an education. So we're not looking just at women's rights. You're looking at her efforts to advocate for every child's right to an education. Now, in your thesis statement, you may say that slightly differently. Okay, so don't worry about that. You can. But that's, in essence, it should be the purpose that you're trying to prove. You can look at the text structure, and that would be how she goes through her argument. You can look at the persuasive appeals. You can look at the diction, which includes descriptions, imagery, emotionally charged language. And then you can look at syntax. So unusual sentence structure, varied sentence length. I know many of you referenced anaphora. So that could be somewhere in syntax if you want to talk about those choices, but you don't want to name anaphora, okay? So when you get to this, I think I can show you. It's going to guide you through it. And sorry that I am not the right page. Okay, here we go. Right. Let's preview the guided draft so you can see what that looks like. So you'll see the prompt. Then it will show you what you need, okay? So the prompt, you'll see it. It has a rubric already for the rhetorical analysis. It'll tell you to add a title, add your introduction, and your body paragraphs. You will literally have to do that. Body paragraphs, counter, that's if you're doing an argument, if you don't have that. So it'll be title, introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. All right? So if you have questions on that as you go forward, you make sure that you let me know. And I can help you with that. It's the first time I've used no red ink. And I told you this was going to be brief, so I'm going to cut to the chase really quickly. Ooh, just messed up that. Okay, so quickly, just one thing. Those of you who've been working hard, appreciate that. Don't stop because it's going to help you do well. Make sure you're watching the lessons and you are doing the session assessment so that you get credit for that. If you do something that's, if you do an assignment that's really late, like I've already scored, then please message me to let me know so that I can score that item and get you up to date. All right, I told you I'd be brief and I'm already 7 minutes over. So have a great day and let me know if you have questions.